Justin Wilcox wearily climbed out of his car. It was Friday, and it had been a long and tiring work week. Not only was there one problem after another at work, his thoughts constantly returned to problems at home. His wife Lois has been very distant lately. Damn it, he told himself. She had been getting more and more distant for a year now. It all seemed to start when the company she worked for fired her from her clerical job to make her an administrative assistant to the president. Lois and Justin had been married for 7 years, and at least for Justin, it had been a pretty good marriage for almost 6 years. They married as soon as he received his master's degree. The only negative thing for Justin in his marriage was that Lois constantly put off having children. However, even if Lois never wanted to have children, Justin would still be happy. He was so much in love with his wife. Justin was the vice president of a small cybersecurity firm. He left one of the largest security firms, G4S, to help set up a new firm, Telco Security. During the 5 years that Justin worked at the firm, they managed to conclude several large contracts with the government and establish a sufficient number of contacts with some of the country's large enterprises. They were currently stretched thin, dealing with all the work they had. The company was in the process of hiring 10 new employees in anticipation of 7 new contracts that were to be awarded. When Justin completed his MBA and a separate master's degree in computer science, he was hired by G4S, one of the largest security companies in the country. Shortly after this, Justin and Lois got married. At first they dated occasionally, but eventually began to date regularly. In truth, Justin felt that Lois had simply agreed to be with him, and that bothered him. Yes, Lois was great, but Justin was a good guy too. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighed 190 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. If there was one thing he lacked to make it onto Lois's list of ideal husbands, it was that he wasn't rich. Lois finally seemed to come to terms with the marriage and became the loving wife Justin had dreamed of. That was until Augustus Grant appeared in their lives. 2 years after their wedding, despite Lois's persistent objections, Justin took a job at Telco. The initial tensions over the job change eventually faded when Lois realized that their way of life was not affected at all, and they even started talking about having children. But almost 13 months ago, Lois began working for Augustus Grant, president and CEO of Triplex Financial. It was a hedge fund that made risky investments that were expected to make huge amounts of money no matter what happened in the stock market. Justin knew that successful hedge funds could make obscene amounts of money, but they were also risky. Before Lois took on the job, Justin did some research on his own. The idea behind this part of the financial industry was to develop investments that would generate large amounts of money. However, if they started to fail, hedge firms had an exit strategy. Of course, in such a growing market as it is now, almost all investment instruments worked. However, if the market suddenly begins to correct, things could quickly go south. Justin was surprised to learn that Triplex hired almost as many scientists and accountants as brokers. They were there to develop investment products that provided maximum returns while offering reasonable expectations of existing investments with minimal losses if they started to go downhill. Justin also learned that Triplex was well established in the industry. Knowing this, Justin was pleased that Lois was working for a quality company. August Grant was 51 years old, a man who worked his way up the corporate ladder. Justin met him once at a Triplex event and found the man to be commanding, but not lacking in considerable charm. However, Justin was uncomfortable with the overly familiar communication between Lois and her boss. However, when he commented on this, Lois made fun of his jealousy. As she noted, Augustus was 22 years older than her. Still, Justin felt uneasy. As time passed, Lois began to distance herself from her husband. She became more critical of what Justin did and spent more time at work. Their sex life began to decline and they argued more and more often. It was heartbreaking to watch his wife move away from him day after day. And the only one he felt comfortable talking to was his administrative assistant, Jennifer. She always listened to him and did not judge him. Even though his entire body was shaking at the thought of confrontation, the atmosphere in his house became oppressive. Regardless of the consequences, Justin knew he had to see it through to the end. It was necessary to touch on the topic of Augustus Grant and his inappropriate relationship with his wife. Justin wearily climbed the steps of the porch and entered his house. He found his wife sitting at the kitchen table, drinking from a glass of wine. "Justin, sit down. We need to talk," she said coldly. "We need to talk," sounded like an icy blow to the chest. These were words that struck complete fear into the heart of any spouse who heard them. Even though Justin was afraid of this confrontation, he was confident that it was coming and prepared as best he could. "Yes, this conversation is long overdue," Justin said softly. "I've thought long and hard about the fact that we're growing apart. I think I've let this situation go on for too long, and we need to resolve things now." Justin paused for just a second and then continued. "Lois, I wanted you to know that I loved you from the very first moment I met you. I thought we had a really good marriage until you started working for Augustus Grant." Lois interrupted him with a wave of her hand. "Let me get this out of the way first. I don't want to get into a discussion with you, Justin. I want a divorce." Well, here it is. The end of his marriage. Everything Justin did to try and save him failed. A sense of loss overwhelmed him. The feeling of sadness for what had been, but was now gone, seemed to empty his stomach. His wife's demand was not unexpected. He had been expecting something like this for months. But now that it was said out loud, it shocked him more than he thought. His shoulders slumped and he leaned back in his chair. Sighing, Justin asked the obvious question. "Why?" Lois's expression was hard, devoid of any compassion. She straightened her shoulders and showed a thin, unpleasant smile. "I fell in love with Augustus, and he asked me to marry him. I can truly say that I love him like I never loved you. And he is much better in bed than you. Besides, he is rich, and he can provide me with a much better life than you ever could." That last statement made Justin tense. But if Lois noticed the impact of her unpleasant and insensitive words, she didn't show it. It was painful to realize that this woman had absolutely no feelings left for him. It also confirmed what he had suspected for some time. Lois cheated on him for months. After so many years of love together, how could this woman be so cold-blooded? After months of deliberation, there was no longer any doubt about the relationship between Lois and August. He knew his wife had always been a keep up with the Joneses type of person. Still, it hurt him that Lois didn't think his efforts on her behalf were enough. He never refused her anything. If she wanted new clothes, Justin let her buy them. When she wanted a Jaguar, he rented it for her, even though he thought the car was a piece of crap. When she wanted a bigger house, they went looking for a place to live on the country club estate. Justin let Lois choose the house she wanted, and although the mortgage was much larger than Justin wanted, he bought it. It pained Justin that none of this was enough, but he held his tongue. Instead, he pointed out the obvious. "He just divorced his third wife. How long do you think he'll keep you around?" "Oh, Justin, don't be an ass. I know this is hard for you, but you'll just have to accept that our marriage is over. I hope it won't be hard with you." Lois then took an envelope from her purse. "I think you will find that the terms of the divorce are quite favorable to you," Lois said, unfolding the documents and handing them to her husband. "If I wanted, I could make your life very difficult and expensive. Instead, I decided to be generous. I am losing all interest in this house. However, I am taking half of our checking and savings accounts, and I also want half of our investment portfolio. August is paying off the rent on the Jaguar. He says it's a terrible car, and he's going to buy me a brand new Porsche." Justin looked into his wife's eyes and saw the cold indifference she radiated towards him. Lois looked at him like he was a bug. Justin decided not to tell her that he thought the Porsche was too expensive a piece of metal and plastic. Instead, he pointed to the divorce document in front of him. "What else is in this document?" "There are a few pieces of furniture that I want to take away, and I want to keep all my jewelry and clothes." Also, I'm not asking for any alimony, and I won't be asking for any of your 401ks. Lois, why are you doing this? Justin asked, picking up the divorce papers in front of him. This house has at least $200,000 in equity. Investments and all our savings are not worth half of this amount. My reason is very simple, Lois said, her eyes narrowing. I want a quick divorce. This was August's proposal. He said if I play hardball, you can drag out the divorce for a year or more. We both want to get married as soon as my divorce is final. However, what is written in these documents about divorce depends on your consent to this and the speeding up of the divorce process. If you fight me in this, I will do anything, and Augustus assures me that I will get everything I ask for. Justin's shoulders sank even lower, and he sighed. Well, I guess we have nothing more to discuss. I avoided facing the truth and did not see the cracks in our marriage, but God is my witness. I tried without success. It is now obvious that our marriage has long come to an end. Tomorrow I will show these papers to my lawyer, and if he says it's okay, I'll sign them. But Lois, I really think you should reconsider this. I don't think this divorce is in your best interest. Justin, I don't want to argue with you. My decision is made, and I want this divorce. And I want it to happen as quickly as possible. Justin shrugged, and a tear rolled down his cheek. Even though he had known for months that his marriage was dying, it was heartbreaking to realize that the woman he loved so much no longer had any feelings for him. It was so sad that this part of his life was now dead. Okay, Lois, I won't fight. I also want it to be a clean break, Lois said, narrowing her eyes even more. I don't want you to dream about me. I don't want emails or messages. I don't want cards or flowers or anything. We'll get a divorce, and I'll move on to a different social circle. I don't want you to embarrass me. Justin simply nodded and stood up. Lois also rose to her feet and headed for the door. Just remember, she called over her shoulder, if my lawyer doesn't get the signed papers within a week, it will be terrible. As soon as Lois left, Justin took out his cell phone and called his assistant Jennifer. She had been with him since he started working at Telco, and she had been his rock. Jennifer was not only a great helper, but she also helped him cope with how his marriage was crumbling. Justin felt like he could always talk to her about anything, business or personal. While Justin was waiting for Jennifer's answer, a comparison between the two women flashed through his mind. Lois was stunningly beautiful, with an impeccable figure. Jennifer, on the other hand, was slightly above average pretty and a few pounds overweight. Lois could be loving and gentle, or she could be cold and bitchy. Jennifer was an eternal optimist. Besides being an extremely efficient secretary, she was able to lift Justin's spirits just by listening to him pour his heart out, and he needed to talk to her now about the final collapse of his marriage. When Jennifer answered, Justin said with a sigh, Lois just left. Did you give her the papers? Jennifer asked immediately. No, I didn't have a chance to do anything, Justin responded defensively. But Justin, you promised that you would give her the divorce papers today. I know, but Lois gave me her divorce papers first, and the agreement she offered, and it's much better than what I was willing to offer her. Are you kidding? Jennifer was completely surprised. How is this better? I was willing to give her half the equity in the house, but she doesn't want any of it. I'd give her half the checks, savings, and investment portfolio, plus pay the rent on her Jaguar. All she wants is half the money, and she said that August will pay the rent for the Jaguar. Lois also wants to take several pieces of furniture from the house and all her jewelry and clothes. What about alimony and your partnership in the telecommunications company? You know, I was willing to pay her alimony of $3,000 a month for 5 years. But Lois said she didn't want anything. But really, if she's going to marry Augustus right now, it's a moot point. But what stunned me was that I was willing to pay her $5 million for half my share in the company. But Lois didn't even bring it up. Truth be told, I don't think she knows that I own a third of the telecom companies. Lois was so angry when I left G4S that she never paid any attention to what I did at the new company. And when she discovered that her lifestyle would not change, she stopped caring. But why is she so generous? Jennifer asked with some bewilderment. According to Lois, it was Grant's idea. Both he and Lois want a quick divorce so they can get married. "Oh, Justin, I can't tell you how happy I am," Jennifer blurted out. "This means we can get married before our baby is born." A year after the divorce was final, Lois was waiting for August in the lobby of the country club when Justin walked in. He noticed her and smiled. "Hey, Lois, how are you doing?" he said, waving his hand. "What are you doing here?" Lois hissed. "I told you when we were getting divorced that you should stay away from me." Before Justin could say anything, the front door opened, and August entered. He noticed Justin immediately, and his eyes narrowed. "Mr. Wilcox, this is a private club. You need to leave immediately. Your presence here is unwelcome." Just as Justin was about to answer, the club secretary came out of his office and smiled at Justin. "Mr. Wilcox, welcome to Tequesta Country Club. Here are your membership cards, certificate of ownership, rules and regulations, and a schedule of upcoming events. I also want you to know that there is a dance this coming Friday, and we will be a group of 7 people. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Grant, I'd like to introduce you to Justin Wilcox. He and his family are our newest members." August's face turned purple, and Lois's jaw dropped. Then the two of them turned around and sped away. A moment later, the door opened again, and Jennifer began to push the stroller with the little boy looking around. Justin rushed to hold the door, then kissed his wife and son before turning back to the club secretary. "I think we'll be very happy here." 4 years after this incident, Justin and Jennifer were sitting at a table of their friends during another club dance. Jennifer hired a nanny and booked a room at a nearby Hilton hotel. She promised Justin that she would rock his world tonight without any interruptions. As they sat there, Jennifer suddenly tapped Justin on the shoulder. "Isn't that Lois?" she asked, pointing to the woman and man who had just entered. Justin looked more closely, and recognition came slowly. He didn't recognize the man at all, but the woman was Lois. However, she was much thinner and looked older. She was still a very attractive woman, but Justin wasn't sure if he would have recognized her if they had met on the street. "She looks so thin. I wonder if she's been sick. Besides, who is this guy she's with?" Justin asked his wife. "No, she wasn't sick," Jennifer said, "but Lois has had a hard time lately. And the man she's sitting with is her new husband, Guy Hampton." "What happened to August? Did he kick her to the curb?" "No, he didn't, because he died of a heart attack while in bed with his new administrative assistant. It happened 2 days before their 5th anniversary." "Why didn't I know this?" Justin asked with bewilderment in his voice. "I'm sure you heard about his death because it was on the news," Jennifer said patently. "However, you probably missed the connection because they used his real name, Mortimer. His real name is Mortimer Augustus Grant." "Oh, that explains it all," Justin said, smiling at his wife. "But if Lois wasn't sick, why is she so thin?" "She had a tough 2 years after her husband died. Lois only received $200,000 from Augustus's will after his death. The rest of his money went to his children, with his first wife, and to charities. Poor Lois was stuck with the prenup she signed shortly before they got married. It said if they were married less than 5 years, Lois would only receive $50,000 for each year. If she had been married 5 years, she would receive at least $2 million and their beachfront apartment." "That still doesn't explain why she's so skinny," Justin asked, studying his ex-wife. "She tried to keep up appearances, but you know it's expensive to live in this area and be a member of a country club. She quickly ran out of money, and her friends abandoned her. For a while, she lived off food stamps and lived in a rat trap in the city's Alhambra neighborhood. Lois finally married Guy, and they bought a house on the golf course. The guy is a partner in an accounting firm. He makes pretty good money, but nowhere near what August made." Justin turned to look at his ex-wife again as Jennifer continued to explain Lois's plight. When he looked across the dance floor to where Lois was sitting, their eyes met. She smiled at him and stood up. Justin was startled when he realized she was heading straight towards him. "I think she's coming this way," he told Jennifer in a slightly panicked voice. "It's okay," she said, patting his hand. I'm pretty sure she doesn't bite. Do you mind if I ask your husband to dance? Lois asked Jennifer. As long as you get him back safe and sound, Jennifer said with a chuckle. I have big plans for him tonight. I promise he'll come back in good condition, Lois said with a smile. She then took Justin's hand and helped him to his feet. Justin cast a displeased glance at his wife. They danced in silence for a few seconds. Lois then began to speak. I forgot how good you are at dancing. We used to love dancing, didn't we? Yes, that's true, Justin agreed. We used to do a lot of fun things. Lois tensed slightly, but they continued to dance for another 15 seconds or so in silence. Lois then said, I've wanted to talk to you for a long time, but I never had the courage. I wanted to tell you how sorry I am for what I did to you, to us. I'm sorry too, Justin said, and then cleared his thoughts. Yes, I'm sorry that our marriage ended because you fell in love with August and decided to divorce me. However, what they say about God is true. When he closes one door on you, he opens another. Jennifer became the one for me at the other door. Also, I would like you to know that any pain or anger I felt towards you is long gone. I'm glad, Justin, Lois said with a sigh. You deserve to be happy. As for me, I don't deserve happiness at all, but with Guy's love, I hope to earn it someday. I hope you really find your happiness, Justin said tenderly. They danced in silence for a few more seconds before Justin spoke. It's kind of funny when I think back to the last conversation. The very day you gave me your divorce papers, I was about to give you my own. I didn't know you were going to do it that day, but I figured you'd sue me soon enough. August said it would be best if I filed first and you accepted my terms. Well, he was right, Justin admitted. However, the terms I was willing to offer were much more favorable to you. I was willing to split everything 50-50 and buy out my share of Telco from you. I didn't even know you owned part of Telco until you became famous 2 years later, Lois admitted. When I found out about this, I was furious and wanted to sue you, but Augustus just laughed and told me that we had no prospects in this matter. We had outwitted ourselves. When the music ended, Justin and Lois pulled away from each other. A tear rolled down Lois's cheek. Justin, all those years we were married, I thought I was too good for you. The truth was, you were too good for me. I wish you all the best in life. I wish the same for you, Lois, Justin said as he watched his ex-wife return to her husband. Justin then turned to see Jennifer watching him with a smile. He smiled back at his wife and thought to himself how lucky he was and how much he loved his wife. Then his face lit up as he remembered that she had promised to turn his world upside down. It's time for the best part of today's activities. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.